can't stop me now. I got no rival. I'ma find my way through the blood and pain.
What's up, everybody? New Never You back in this thing, and today I want to talk about bans and erratas, specifically in TCG, but I do have, specifically in FFTCG, but I do have an example from Yu-Gi-Oh! That if these things continue over all card games, I think that it's going to eventually ruin everything. But as of always, this is just my outlook on things. I feel more than welcome to listen to your opinions, or I guess read them in the comments. But we'll go through the ban cards of Final Fantasy first, and then I will give you the example from Yu-Gi-Oh!, which you can actually already see up here. But so as of right now, these are the ban cards in standard format, which is the format that we use for tournaments, like Materia Cups or local qualifiers. So the first one's going to be Riku, and I'll go ahead and read these just in case you're just listening to the video. Riku is a 2-cost wind backup Final Fantasy X category from Opus 1. She's a hero, and her ability is pay 1 wind, dull it. Your opponent puts 1 card from the top of his or her deck into the break zone. Special, discard a Riku, pay 1 wind, duller. Your opponent puts the top 2 cards of his or her deck into the break zone. You draw 1 card. Now, I believe this got banned because it was loopable. There's so many win cards now that you can really just do this almost infinitely. And actually, with a couple of elements, wind, water, you can do that. And I believe with wind, ice, you can do it. And then mono wind, you can do it as well. So this is banned, and I'll read all of them before I give my opinion. Guido, 3-cost water backup job sage, category 5, Opus 3 hero. Guido does not activate during the active phase. 1 water, activate Guido. 1 water and whatever else. Dull him, choose 1 4 to cost 5 or more your opponent controls, put it at the top of its owner's deck. Alright, next is, I'm probably gonna screw this up. Dataluma is a 4-cost earth forward 8,000 power martial artist, category 6, Opus 4 hero. When Dataluma is chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities, choose up to 1 4 your opponent controls, deal it 4k. When Dataluma is dealt damage, choose up to 1 4 your opponent controls, deal it 4k. Alrighty. Gesper, 2-drop ice backup, monster. War machine, and category is theater rhythm, and 8. Dull. Each player discards 1 card from his or her hand. You can only use this ability during your turn. Okay. Thaumaturge. This is a 1,000 power 2-drop ice forward standard unit, category 14, Opus 5 common. When Thaumaturge enters the field, your opponent discards 1 card from his or her hand. If your opponent has 2 or less cards in his or her hand, Thaumaturge gains 4k power. I don't know how to say this either. Mion is a 2-cost win backup. She is a proprietress. Final Fantasy 14 is the category, a rare from Opus 5. When she enters the field, choose 1 character other than herself you control. You may return it to its owner's hand. If you do so, draw a card. Yeah, I can see why that is. Althea, 3-cost win backup, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Princess is the job hero, Opus 12. When Althea enters the field, choose 1 character other than Althea you control, activate it. Dull her, choose 1 character other than Althea you control, return it and Althea to their owner's hands. Ugh, yeah, gross. Sildra, 4-drop water, no job because it's a summon. Category 5 hero, Opus 12. Search for 2 water characters. 2 category 5 characters, or one of each with a different cost, and add them to your hand. Doga. This is a forward of 7,000 power, category 3, job Magus, opus 13, hero. Elements are water and earth. For every 3 summons in your break zone, Doga gains 1,000 power. When Doga enters the field, draw 1 card for each summon you discarded to cast Doga. When Doga attacks, if you have 9 or more summons in your break zone, you may cast 1 summon from your hand without paying the cost. That's nasty. Mashari, I think that's how you say it. 2 cost, light. Forward, 6,000 power, opus 14 hero, job princess, category Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. The cost required to cast your summons is reduced by 1. It cannot become 0. Remove 3 summons in the break zone from the game. Select one of the 3 following actions. Draw 1 card. Choose 1 forward. Return it to its owner's hand. During this turn, the cost required to cast your next summon is reduced by 3. It cannot become 0. And the last actual banned card is Stern Leonis. 9,000 power, 4 cost, dark, job prince, opus 14, hero, category Brave Exvius, FFBE. The cost required to cast yours forwards is reduced by 1, cannot become 0. Remove 4 forwards in the break zone from the game. Select one of the 3 following actions. Choose 1 forward, deal it 7,000 damage. Choose 1 monster, break it. Until the end of the turn, all the forwards you control gain 4,000 power and brave. And then there is one that is restricted, meaning you can only have 1 copy. This is 2-drop Earth, Water, Sophie. Job is a monk. Category is Mobius. Opus 13, Legend. 4,000 power. For each Earth forward other than Sophie you control, Sophie gains 2k. For each Water forward other than Sophie you control, Sophie gains 2k. At the end of each of your turns, if Sophie has 10,000 power or more, draw a card, and Sophie deals your opponent 1 point of damage. Okay, so the erratas in Final Fantasy aren't like horrible. They just most of them just clarify, change things to make it a little easier for you to understand. The only errata that I believe is one that really changes things is the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, because it makes its job count as a Scion of the Seventh Dawn instead of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, so it can actually win you the game, but that'll be shortly. Okay, so Riku you can only have 1 of, Guido you can only have 1 of, as far as on the field if they were playable. Gesper was a 3 of, Thaumaturge was a 3 of, and I think they were the only ones outside of Sildra, because obviously it's a summon. So Gesper is so the cost for this is to dull it, and I'm pretty sure just because the way I'm reading it, each player discards 1 card from his or her hand. Let's say you play your whole hand to do this. You don't have to discard a card. So you could play 3 of these theoretically, and since it's a monster, you can treat it as if it has haste, and use this ability as soon as it comes out. So play 3 theoretically, or empty your hand and take out 3 of your opponent's starting cards, or however many cards they have at the given moment. Thaumaturge is kind of the same thing, except it's a forward. When it enters the field, your opponent discards a card from his or her hand. So you could theoretically play these both and empty your opponent's whole hand. So yeah, I mean, that's understandable. And this is a 2-drop. You just loop it. Althea, you can loop it. Sildra was loopable. All these cards were loopable. Now the issue is because obviously everyone wants to win whatever deck they're playing. So if these cards were still valid, a lot of people wouldn't play other things because these cards really instinctively add too much value to certain decks. Like the Riku, your opponent puts one card from his or her deck. You could essentially mill your opponent out of cards. And if you're doing it with wind and ice, they wouldn't have any cards to play, and they wouldn't eventually would run out of cards to draw. But there is a problem with the Gesper and the Riku situation because they're backups, and there aren't a lot of cards in the game that deal with backups. So I would say sure, this is validly banned. But as far as things that you could deal with, like forwards, obviously you have to have the cards in your hand or on the field to deal with them. So I can't say just have the card and you could deal with the situation. Obviously it's more it's a lot more to it than just that. But I do think some cards being banned is healthy for the game, but at the same time I feel like once you start banning so many cards, players start to expect it, and with that expectation, a lot of players are like, well, if they don't ban Warrior of Light, I'm just not gonna play the game anymore. If they don't ban Cecil from Opus 16, I'm just not gonna play the game anymore. If they don't ban Ferris, etc. List goes on. Now if it's a card where it's just overpowered, nobody can do anything against that card, I understand. But I also feel like if you're trying to be a better card player, if you can't beat something, then with your current setup of cards, then I would obviously try to find a way around it to beat it. I'm not just gonna constantly keep losing to the same cards and complain that it needs to be banned. I would try to become a better player, because in becoming a better player, I'll discover new strategies, I'll discover new ways of play, I'll understand rulings better. But if we just go and ban everything like Warrior of Light, Ferris, etc., then the only people getting better are the people that are already winning these events anyway. So the ban cards don't really help like the people trying to get to higher levels of gameplay. Realistically, it's only helping the players that are already winning Materia Cups and winning all these big events. I think the key to keeping things unbanned is if there's something you can't deal with, like go around the situation, study it, understand it, and then build something that you like that can deal with that and also protect yourself from things that possibly you don't know are out there. Because the reality is you can't prepare for everything, but you can prepare for some things. So I don't think this list isn't extensive, so I'm very happy compared to like a Yu-Gi-Oh list that's just insanely big. Yeah, it's wild. And like I said, the erratas in Final Fantasy aren't horrible. But I do have an example of an errata in Yu-Gi-Oh. So this card is called Chaos Emperor Dragon, and this is gonna be relevant, I promise. So when this card came out way back when, the effect said you can only special summon this card by removing one light and dark monster in your graveyard from play. Pay 1,000 of your life points. You get 8,000 life points in Yu-Gi-Oh! To start out with, to send all cards in both players' hands and on the field to the graveyard. That would be our break zone. Inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent's life points for each card that is sent to the graveyard. That counts this card, all the other cards on the field, your cards in the hand, your opponent cards in the hand. So typically they would lose roughly around 3,000 to 3,300 life points. And this thing could use this ability after it attacked. So 6,000 roughly is what you're looking at. And this is the errata. Cannot be normal summon a set. Must be special summoned from your hand by banishing one light and dark monster from your graveyard. Once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points, send as many cards in both players' hand and on the field as possible to the graveyard. Then inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card sent to the opponent's graveyard by this effect. You cannot activate cards or effects during the turn you activate this card's effect. So notice how this is borderline just not, it's pointless to play outside of its 3,000 attack. Back in the day, it was each card sent to the graveyard. Now, so this card got banned, they errated it, and then it came back out with this. So now it's you send everything, but they only take damage for the cards that they send, and you can't activate this if you've activated anything else. So let's say Yu-Gi-Oh terms. I'm sorry, Final Fantasy terms. Let's say I activated Unalesca to make you discard, and then I wanted to use this effect to send everything to the break zone. I can't because I activated Unalesca. So I could attack with it, 3,000. Yeah, that's great. But the whole point of this card was the effect. And without that, it's, you know, it's kind of just, it's not bad because it's still 3,000. But if you activate this, you can't activate anything else in response to what your opponent does. So you can't protect this. So really it's just a card that you would attack with unless you knew you were going to win with the effect. But you would also have to know what your opponent had in their hand. And this is what I don't want to happen to Final Fantasy. I don't want cards to be banned that are super strong like this original version of this Chaos Emperor, and then they come back as this watered down version that you look at and you're like, I don't want to play this. And this card was like $100, I think, when it came out for the longest time while it was being played. And typically back then, the decks only played it at 1. You could play 3, just like in Final Fantasy. But when it got banned, I mean, people were spending $100, and some people had 2 or 3 copies. So $300, it gets banned. So your $300 investment is now worth nothing because nobody wants to buy it because it's banned. And it was banned for 10, 12 years. And it, not only does banning cards hurts people's wallets, it also like just ruins the experience because a lot of people don't make a lot of money and they want to play some of these expensive cards. Right now I think Clav's $30, maybe $50, and let's say Johnny saved up to get a playset of Clavs and he spent $150 for the playset. We'll just ignore the tax. And 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, he's playing the deck, and all of a sudden, Clav gets banned or pushed to 1. Essentially, he's lost $100 to $150 of his investment. And then that type of thing pushes him out of the game because now he doesn't want to buy cards, because if he buys cards and they get banned, then he spent all that money and he can't even enjoy what he spent his money on, because the only way he can play it is if you're playing with like backyard rules, and you don't really win prizes with backyard rules. So this is why I don't like banning cards. I just think getting better at the game is better than banning cards. And if somebody's abusing a card, that just says a lot about them, I guess. I mean, yeah, we all want to win, but if your sole goal is to win so your opponent can't play, then sure, that's creative, I guess. But I mean, you know. But these are just my thoughts. Love to hear what you think. Holler at me in the comment section, email me. Let's get some conversation going. But I am new, never you. And if you did new, now you do. Peace.